Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Timely Topics. My name is Michaela Hartle, a program assistant at CCEI, and I have Donald here, who is a previous CCEI program participant, and today he's going to be talking to you about the unintended solopreneurship.
All right. Thanks, Michaela. So good afternoon, or whatever time it is, wherever you're watching this. My name is Donald Pendagast. As Michaela said, I've had the pleasure of going through a whole host of programs when it comes to the CCEI. I graduated from the full-time MBA program in 2020, having gone through a lot, I think just about every program, get seated, the Accelerate UConn, and last summer I had the pleasure of going through the summer fellowship program as well. This sort of the flagship accelerator program through UConn, the CCEI. So really excited not only to be here and have this opportunity to speak, but to give back and continue to participate in the community. So thanks so much for the opportunity. Well, a few months back, Michaela asked me if I'd be interested in being one of the speakers in this Timely Topic series. And of course, I said yes. And naturally, the next question is, what are you going to talk about? And I thought, gee, that's a great question. And I couldn't help but immediately think about my own journey, where I am, where I was a few months ago. And so that's what I kind of want to share with you today, sort of a little mini tell-all, and hopefully with a little bit of what's next for me and for Curated CT, which is the business I've started. Obviously the unintended part is that honestly, I had really hoped to, I really want to be building a team. And I guess I'll just jump into the definitions. I always try to start there a little bit. And I thought that HubSpot nailed this really, really well. It describes solopreneurship as this individual who starts and runs their business independently without the support of a co-founder or W-2 employees. And these solopreneurs are typically those business owners who are not looking to build a scalable business. And for a while, I think that kind of was me. I was running this business off the side of my desk. I was working full time. I had just simultaneously was finishing up grad school full time with UConn. Had taken a management consulting job and really wanted to get this business off the ground and trying to figure out how to do that. And in just a moment, we'll kind of go through real quick some of the context of the business. But what if you don't want to go it alone, as I didn't, and certainly I'm not looking to do that going forward. I don't think it's possible. I don't think I want to. And certainly, what if I want to build a scalable business? How do you go from being that one person to being a lot more than that? And so that's really what the starting point for today, and what I'm hoping to share with you. So the first thing is a little spoiler alert. I don't see myself as a solopreneur, but more of a solo founder. And we'll get more into that in a little bit, in terms of my sort of the attitude that I've taken and the shifts that I'm making over the last few months. So I just want to take a quick moment. That's kind of where I am today. I just want to take a quick moment and brief you on how I got here, and then talk a little bit through about how I want to move forward. And then, of course, hopefully, if there are any questions that any of this inspires, I hope to continue the conversation afterwards. So for those of you who have not seen Curated CT, essentially, in a nutshell, we build relationships with Connecticut small businesses. We work with and find and discover makers, growers, and artisans from across the state. And we pick products that we love, which isn't usually too hard to do. We bundle those and deliver those right to our customers. And we kind of got our start almost like this farmer's market in a box concept. So we're delivering things that were highly perishable, things like breads, cheeses, and getting all the folks same day. So this really got started. I think there's a longer arc to this whole story and my story. But I'll just go back to 2012. I worked on, for the better part of a year, worked on a loyalty app. And I bring this up because Curated CT really represented this shift from thinking about how we can create something like a loyalty app that I worked on years ago, using something called a QR code. Back then, most people did not know, outside of manufacturing and supply chain logistics, what a QR code was. Today, of course, that is not the case. But the main value prop there was helping the small mom and pop shops we were working with, we were targeting, helping them find their next customer. And this was, had some we had some hiccups along the way and some troubles. I think a lot of people wanted to know how we knew more about their customer than they did. And years later, it kind of dawned on me that it's not about helping small businesses find their next customer and this sort of marketing gimmick, these promises that you hope to prove through trial and error and all of that, but actually being their next customer. What if we did all the running around? You're a busy professional, maybe you're in Hartford, New Haven, Stamford. You don't have time to get to that farm for the CSA share on Thursday afternoon, whether you have going on. You don't have time to frequent the olive oil store in West Hartford Center that's open from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. during the day when you can't get there. It's just so much easier to hit up Target or Amazon or whatever big box store is super easy and convenient. And so we really wanted to make it simple to buy local. And in 2019, had the opportunity to get seated. It was just created that previous semester, was new that academic year. And fortunately, originally we kind of pitched it called Farm Box, now curated CT. And it was really to use that whole Silicon Valley formula. It's like this, but that. It's like CSAs meet Dollar Shave Club meets Connecticut Magazine. At least that's what I said that day. So in 2020, at the end of 2020, we were able to actually launch a pilot program. We did a 3-month pilot, and this box was exactly what I had envisioned. It was bread, coffee, cheese, chocolate, and there was always a 5th item that we would rotate. Sometimes it was another food item. Sometimes it was things like soap that I don't recommend eating. But either way, it was local, and we were doing it through Hog River Brewing. They were actually, they allowed us to use their space. So we actually included beer with the box. I can't sell you beer. So we were handing over gift cards and things so people could go to the bar themselves, pick out the beer that they want, handle the transaction with the bartender directly. And it made a lot of sense. But quickly, we as we anticipated, we started to see customers that had signed up. They really liked the experience. They liked what they were getting. They were really pleased with it all. But the babysitter couldn't make it, so they couldn't get out to meet us that day, or the weather was bad, or insert whatever is going on, whatever priority you have. So we knew we had to get to shipping. We had to get to delivery. So 2021 took off, kind of going from that pilot into that. We got into the Reset Impact Accelerator here in Hartford. This is the same year that I applied and was fortunate enough to get into the summer fellowship. That October, this just about a year ago, decided to take the plunge. I left my full-time job as a management consultant and made curated CT my full-time thing. We started going hog wild into the holidays. I had television interviews, we had news spots, we had holiday gifts, we started a podcast, and on. And we were doing a lot. But I want to highlight the team aspect here, especially when we're talking about solopreneurship, solo founders, how to make this work. And so if over the same period of time, I got started, again, never thinking I would do this on my own. And if I think back to 2019, when it was pitching with the CCEI at first, really getting the idea out there in the wild, and for the first time getting any kind of reaction at all to it, I was really working with a bunch of MBA classmates. Fortunately, I was in the full-time MBA program, so we were students full-time. And we had a lot of people just with the time and mental space to think about this and to help me through. So of course, I shout out to Shelby and Rahul at the time. And in 2020, I remember going out to lunch. Now, COVID, of course, was in full swing at this point. I remember having lunch outdoor with a couple of friends, including my friend Paul, whom I met in a change management class, and Paul said to me, he said, I said, what are you up to? And I said, well, I'm at work and this and that. And we're going to be doing some, had to cancel some travel, but really hoping to get this business off the ground. And he's like, dude, you've been talking about this forever. You gotta just go do it. I'm going to help you. And this was the kick in the butt that I needed. I needed a Paul. And so Paul, represented not only, a friend of mine who was like willing to help me out and willing to be there, but, he became that sounding board. He became the person that I needed to like bounce those ideas off of. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm an ideas guy. I connect people and ideas. That's what I do. And so taking that into actually executing was well, it's a whole thing. So really, as we got this pilot off the ground, as we did some of the running around, the logistics, picking up the products, bringing it to the brewery, assembling the boxes, I had at least one other person that was absolutely dedicated to it. And after we went through the pilot, Paul became convinced that there was something here, and he went from just being a friend helping out a friend to actually being interested in being a business partner. And I thought, this is great. This is what I wanted. This is what I was hoping for. Unfortunately, as we got into 2021, Paul got news of going on deployment. So very quickly, I no longer had Paul in that same way. As everything else was happening, going through the accelerator programs was a different experience in that way. And I guess if I had a regret, I maybe leaving and making curative of my full-time things sooner would have been great. But that's not the point. So this is really I just want to make the point that I've had different people come and go, whether it's someone like Paul who has been there, and we're looking at like, how do we fit in equity and how do we make him a business partner, to later hiring communications consultants, hiring a local marketing agency to take care of all of the social campaigns and efforts and things that I know are important, but I just don't have the wherewithal to get to. So there's a lot going on here, and having been accelerated to death and reckoning with the fact that my career as a so-called management consultant was not long for me. I took probably the first real step back and away from Solopreneurship to make Curated my full-time job. And so as I fast forward to the last few months and today, again, coming back to this question of how can I possibly do all this alone? And it's been a great opportunity to reflect about, and consider what my path forward is going to be. And, as you can probably tell, I'm one of those overthinkers. People tell me that all the time. I take slight offense to it because I'm just stubborn enough. But, I do consider myself a thoughtful thinker. And I think most people who know me would agree with that. But what they're really trying to tell me, and taking the feedback seriously, their point isn't about my actual ability to think. The point is rather that as an entrepreneur, a founder, employee number only, I need to act decisively. I need to take action, and it's all in the execution. So I need to have a plan, and I need to work that plan. If I had to boil it down to a single thing, what I'm seeing is this disconnect between the mission and what Curated is, and ultimately what the problem I'm solving is, and the solutions that I put together to address those problems for my end users, right? When I tell a person or a room of people about Curated CT, the reaction is always some variety of, oh my God, I love it. This is so cool. Like, this is amazing. Like, how do I sign up? How do I find out more? And what that's translated to is a lot of likes and email signups, but it doesn't convert. And so, I think it's consistent with other customer discovery work that I've done. You know, talking with direct customers, say at a farmer's market, it really shows me that there are two different kinds of customers, two different types of people, broadly. Those who want to discover new products, new things, new services around them and try those things, things like subscriptions or getting random stuff, and getting those surprises in the mail, that's enticing to them. And the other group are those who want exactly what they know, exactly what they like. They're if I tell them that it comes with this and that and coffee, oh, I don't drink coffee, I don't want that, they're going to walk away. And so these people are more, it's more of a grocery shopping type of activity for them, right? They're not really shopping so much as they're buying, and they have a specific need or occasion or something that they're looking for, and you either have it or you don't. And so trying to be there for both of those audiences, I've really failed to satisfy either of those audiences. Just trying to do too much. The price point is too high for would-be subscribers that do want that discovery and that monthly surprise. And the full-size products that we're offering, that these aren't samples, you're getting the real stuff as if you were to go into the store or the shop or directly to the vendor. But those collections, they're not suited for what those customers really want. So I think ultimately it comes down to, I know I can't do this alone, I don't want to do it alone, and what I need to do is sort of situate myself where I can unleash what I know I do well in relationship building, in the product discovery and finding things and telling the stories of small businesses in Connecticut, and the sales effort. And this had me recalling articles about, oh God, I'm looking at one right now, at which I think when you look at the frequency with which startup founders are often found to be poor CEOs of the businesses that they have started. And so I'm wondering, why am I any different from anybody else in that situation? And at the same time, I know, and I'm told that sort of I embody the brand that is curated CT. But beyond that, what does that relationship look like? So, I think this article made me, or thinking about those articles had me go back to what I know, and that's Harvard Business Review. So as an MBA, for better or worse, I like research. I like going out and finding things. And to my shock, back in April, this article, "Don't Buy the Myth That Every Startup Needs a Co-Founder," was on the front page of HBR. And what I loved about this, and what resonated with me so well, was that it really matched the experiences that I've been having in the last year or so. And so I decided to use this as kind of a framework to start thinking about how I need to move forward. Just to give you an idea here, there's a lot of text, I know, but the summary here, and I think the big call out, is that the research that they're doing and citing finds that solo founders can be successful, even though the common wisdom out there is that you need co-founders, you need to have a team, you need to have a few people in order to really make it work. And what they start citing is that solo founders have what they call co-creators, and it's the support of these co-creators that really make it work. And I realized that I inadvertently was starting to do this already, for better or worse, or however well. And so that's kind of, I think this is how I'm looking at this now. This is how I'm seeing things. And the three buckets that they highlight and they put things into, the first is employees. And they're really looking at, hey, if you happen to be, maybe you're coming off a previous startup, you've got, maybe you just sold your business, and now you're sitting on some cash. go ahead and hire people. I certainly am not in that situation, but I have had some slight attempts at doing this. And without funding to truly cover an individual's salaries, hiring consultants, I've done that. Definitely have seen some mixed results, and definitely made the conscious decision not to bring in any interns and that sort of thing. It's just it's a lot of work supporting them, and I need to keep kind of focused on developing the plan and the work and everything. The second thing is alliances. So they kind of talk about, and as I've seen this, I've always talked about my vendors as partners, and the idea of an alliance with even the consultants that I've worked with to say, hey, this is great. I think there's a there. I know you believe in this too. Is there a different arrangement we could work out? And that to this point is mostly fallen through. I think the efforts still seem to either to be too risky. There's still so much unknown. It's easy to promise profit sharing or other things, but you have to have the profit sharing. Like, you have to actually see those results. There has to be kind of a way forward. And I think in other situations, I've working through some of the numbers with people, the anticipated payoff is just not big enough to them. So that's that. And lastly, I think that the third piece here is that the benefactors. So they talk about sort of whether it's advice or other kinds of support from other people, where there is no kickback, there's no equity, there's no payout, there's nothing like that. It's just folks that are willing to help you out directly. And so, I think to date, I definitely get advice from a lot of people. I think this is actually a bit of a problem, I think, for me, in that I've had so many conversations with different people, which inevitably spurs more ideas, and puts me in even more different directions, and kind of works against what exactly that single focus is going to be given limited resources. So I know I'm probably running out of time here. So I just want to jump here and highlight kind of what's next. As I think about some of these things, people ask me all the time when I talk about the business with them, what problems are you solving? And I usually start by saying something like, well, that depends on who you are, and it just goes on and on from there. And it never feels good. It never feels sufficient, which I think is emblematic of that lack of focus that I've had, because we've done so many different things trying to help so many different audiences. So first thing here is really to focus on creating solutions within a single target audience. And a lot of that is looking at, how are we, who are we focusing on, and how are we delivering on that? And so things like maybe looking at more B2B types of relationships, and solutions and work. Maybe it's focusing on that target audience, that consumer audience that is really focused on discovery. They want to try new things. They love finding out new things, and that all is exciting to them, and they're interested in that. And then lastly, just the sort of one-off purchases, the direct-to-consumer efforts, and thinking more about the e-commerce side of the business. Ultimately, it's really analyzing all these things right now and starting to put that plan together. I think someone said to me recently, you've got to have that person that's going to help you, tell no, so that you're saying no more than yes. But it's also, I think, for me, not just yes and no. It's also when something is good enough, so that I don't keep working on something when it's good, it's ready, thinking MVP type stuff, and get it out the door and move on to the next thing. The second piece here, and I think it's connected for sure, is really looking at these deeper alliances. So specifically, there are two entities that I'm speaking with right now actively about how we can, what that plan is. They love the brand. They see promise in what we can do together. and working with, in one case, in a local firm here, to handle buckets of work that I can't, and how we can essentially find mutually beneficial arrangements to join forces, combine our resources for mutual benefit. And really trying to see how we can do that. And part of that conversation is, great, we need a plan. And to borrow the word from the article, co-create that plan and really, really work it. The other thing that I'm seeing, and I think it's possible for me, and I'm talking with people about on the product side, is that some of these businesses, if you're a baker, sometimes you just want to be a baker. You're all about your product. And as much as you might enjoy making, a reel or posting a video or getting something out there, delivering your product, they don't have time to do all that themselves either. Figuring out shipping, figuring out delivery, the logistics, all of that stuff. So how can we work with specific businesses to create more of a vertical with them and really handle all of the business with them? And I think a great example is the gourmet s'mores kit that we just launched for the holiday. And this is not meant to be a product plug whatsoever, but this is something that didn't exist before talking and working with these businesses to create this box of stuff: marshmallows, graham cracker, which didn't exist, and chocolate. So I think there's an opportunity there as well. And hopefully that the idea is to try to figure out how to make that match whatever that target audience focus is going to be, as well. And I think the last thing here, I say optional because it's one of those things that's like, this is probably a nice to have. But I mentioned a lot of the feedback I get, a lot of the conversations that I have, customers that I take to lunch just to pick their brains a little bit more. I get all this feedback, and I think part of what's been such a hindrance for me is that I'm not having one conversation with a group of people. I'm having 20 individual conversations, and then trying to reconcile all of that, and then going back to people who then see that I didn't take their advice, maybe. They have other questions. So possibly by forming, a more formal advisory board and having a single conversation and allowing people to maybe even to challenge each other's ideas, assumptions, thoughts, observations, I can get to a more focused set of, a more focused way of streamlining that information I'm getting from the outside and how I can use that to improve what I'm doing going forward. But as I said, I think that's a nice to have. Hopefully we'll get there. Anyway, I've been talking a lot. I really appreciate everyone tuning in, joining in, and I'm excited to see what's next myself. These are literally things all on my plate right now while fulfilling everything for the holidays, and hopefully taking a little bit of time in the new year. Are there any questions or?
Yeah, let's open the floor up to a couple of questions. You guys can either unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, you can write your question in the chat. We'll give it a couple of minutes.
It's Rob. I have a question, Donald.
Yeah.
So I guess last few months, what's the one thing that you learned that's new that has or will positively impact your business moving forward?
I think things that are, what have I learned Rob, I think I'm still continuing to see more and more evidence that reinforces much of what I think I've shared with you in the last 20 minutes. So one good thing is, I think the assumptions I'm making, the understandings that and things I'm seeing around what people want, how we can deliver it, and more importantly here, where that focus needs to be. And, does there exist a person or an organization that I could possibly work with, and that they're willing to work with me to take this thing further? And the answer is yes. And when I say, you know, seeking more formal partnerships with a firm or agency to handle buckets I can't, there, I'm having an active conversation with someone right now about this. And that's come about in just the last few weeks. And, you know, definitely hat tip to, you know, I think, again, I put alone in quotes in the beginning on the earlier slide here. I don't think that I am literally alone. And fortunately, you know, I had a conversation about a month ago with Michelle Cody, and she kind of reframed one of these questions, you know, and she's like, because I was like, well, what do I want to do? And she's like, well, what do you need? And I'm like, well, I need, and I start talking about the business. She's like, no, like, what do you need? I'm like, oh, I'm like, well, I need to make profit. And two, like, I can't do it alone. I need to figure out a creative way where I can, you know, start working with someone to make all this happen. And you know, immediately she, you know, she was able to put me in touch with this person. And she's like, oh yeah, like, do you know this person? I'm like, actually, I do. And it just it created space to have that conversation, and not in a, you know, ultimatum kind of way, but in a way that was, or in a desperate way, but in a way that I could be transparent, I could be honest and open about where I am and what I'm trying to do. But it also, I was just, I guess, incredibly pleased that their response was, we love your brand. Yeah, we're willing to have this conversation with you, and we're willing to talk about what that might look like. The other thing is, I happen to have breakfast with someone, one of the directors down at a Bigelow Tea Company, and they were like, we love what you're doing. Can we do like an event with you? Can we do something for our employees? And I'm like, you know, the sparks are flying, ideas and sparks are flying. Things that I thought about a year and a half ago, I'm actually seeing interest in. And I'm seeing how that, okay, great, more ideas. But now let's put that against this criteria, this lens of what is the focus. And let's say it's B2B, for example. If that's the focus, then does this fit into that focus? And well, that does. So, you know, it's like, okay, I know how to do sales. I know how to talk to people. I know how to find out, you know, what those needs are. I know how to figure out if there's a way that we can, that what we're building matches that. And I'm still heartened by the fact that people are still willing to answer my phone calls. They're still willing to meet up with me. They're still willing to be as open and honest with me as I am with them. So
Awesome.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
We have time for one more quick question, which I do see one in the chat for you, Donald.
Oh, the chat. Awesome. So thanks, Robert. So Robert's asked, have you explored any of the CEO founder peer advisor groups that are available? That's a great question. So the short answer is no. I think what he's referring to here is that there might be advisory groups. I'm not sure if there's a specific one that you have in mind. I'm all ears, which again is part of my problem. But you know, I this also makes me think about some of the resources I think are out there. I don't have a connection with any of them at the moment, but in terms of like the matchmaking that goes on between founders and wannabe founders, or you know, just trying to find like-minded people that can be that sounding board. Yeah, I would be more than interested in looking at what those are. I think before I do that, and maybe I'm crazy, but I think I have to kind of flesh out a little bit more of what that focus is and what that plan is going forward before I engage with more people. But I love the idea. Thanks.
Awesome. And I think that is all the time we do have today, but this recording will be up on the CCEI website by the end of this week. And you can also always reach out to me if you want to contact for Donald, and I can definitely connect the two of you. So Donald, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for preparing such a thoughtful presentation and engaging with the audience. It was a great way to wrap up the 2022 Timely Topics series. So please stay tuned for what we have coming in 2023.
Thanks so much, Michaela.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.